Well, hello, that's me again. It is the 18th of September, and I am talking to you after a really interesting event. We arrived home only at around 1 o'clock in the morning, and this was due to us visiting or basically attending the concert by Roger Waters, the legend, and one of the two founders with Sid Barrett of Pink Floyd. And frankly, it's a surreal kind of experience, the same as it was a couple of years ago when we got to see in the excellent seats, actually, the whole concert of the Electric Light Orchestra with Jeff Lynne. And if somebody would have told me many years ago, let's say in 1977, in my high school, while listening to Wish You Were Here and Animals, that I will be seeing the person who did all that, created and wrote these basically albums, I would have told them that, hey, you're just nut jobs, you're nuts. And here I was yesterday, well, pretty much almost today, listening to Wish You Were Here and Shine On Your Crazy Diamond, and obviously listening to the whole B-side of the Dark Side of the Moon. And I was almost tempted to pinch myself. Despite Rogers' obviously classic Western 1960s, 70s kind of left-leaning liberal politics, he is the guy who, basically speaks broadly and in general is more humanistic approach to the modern day geopolitics. So when the guy pulls up Mr. Obama or Mr. Clinton as the war criminals on the screen, hey, no, basically protestations from me. He nailed that part really well. And so here we are today. And obviously, yeah, as much as the war is bad and it's a horrendous thing, we need to talk about some things which I promised, actually, speaking about the politicization of the Intel. And there is nothing new which I will tell you except on the example of this famous Kharkov offensive by VSU, which is now turned in a complete catastrophe for armed forces of Ukraine and Kiev regime, and it's Western enablers, not to speak about, of course, the not just enablers, but people who actually planned and ran this thing. And I will start, obviously, with some what is called political representation of BS, if you want to. And yeah, here's your so-called specialists in the foreign policy, which they are not. I'm being sarcastic. There are no real specialists in foreign policy anymore in the United States, as there is no real journalism. But here it is. Some boy, Jack Dage, writes about how Russia is supplying Ukraine with lightly used tanks, allegedly because Russians ran away so much from this counter-offensive. And it was written on the 13th of September. And as you can see yourself, the source of this information, as you can see yourself, Ukrainian military officials told foreign policy. Fact is, I'm not even sure that they told foreign policy that. It's just that the foreign policy was in the spewing bullshit and propaganda for many years now, and there are no people really of any competence there. And the kid who wrote this, his name is Jack Dage, or Dage, whatever the hell he is. He's typical mama's boy hanging around Washington and, around Pentagon, CIA, what have you, gathering those rumors and reporting on them, presenting them as some kind of the valid analysis of information. And I looked up his LinkedIn. Yeah, he was dumped down for 4 years with the BA, which is basically BS in international relations, from either George Washington University or something like that. So basically your classic mindless moron who basically have no integrity, and he's ready to spew whatever is told by powers that be. And that's what I'm on record, that basically everything, including the so-called intel, is politicized. And you can go again and you want to see and read that about politicization of the intel from CIA professional and anti-terrorist professional Larry Johnson. I will leave the link to his excellent article about basically how the American intel does BS and how it basically represents basically alternative universe picture of the events, and I will leave the link to his wonderful article about that, and he knows what he's talking about. He was privy and part of it in his professional life. So, and this is what I have to start with. But of course, on the 14th, and starting already today, we already know that all it ended with the catastrophic losses of VSU, while Russia absolutely gave up territory, which is nothing more than pretty much empty fields, and about 2 towns the size of, I don't know, like 20,000 people, and already they didn't have the half of population in them. So, but even when you have a tabloid type thing, a Russian tabloid thing, which is live, it's not really tabloid, but it's close to it. And even on the 14th, they already started to say, talk about it, and the highlight and the title of this is, it's Attack on the Last Money and why the offensive of armed forces of Ukraine will exhaust itself and what it means for Ukraine. What threats is this for Ukraine? And so I can tell you immediately, live, unlike its American or Western medias who present to us all kinds of the sophomoric bullshitters, or the well endowed in terms of the titles and ranks, military ranks, people who lost any kind of integrity and parade themselves as ignorant amateurs. Life actually went for the jugular and started talking to people at the front line, and immediate thing which you have to keep in mind and pay attention to is the fact that while I'm bashing absolutely justifiably a bunch of the creeps who work in the US media, I have to tell you that the situation is not much better in Russia, especially with all those Telegram channels, all those military correspondents, and all those, mama's boys who decided to go and test themselves under fire while reporting whatever they think and having no clue about what they do, what they report. And I want to stress also that actually majority of the military correspondents are not allowed around Russian armed forces units. Primarily, they hang around the corps or basically Lugansk and Donetsk militias, and those guys, while great soldiers and very many, of them are absolutely heroic, and some of them, some of them are excellent soldiers. There are some issues with what they report because obviously many of them are not privy with what is happening in terms of their overall strategy and operations. They are given their specific tasks in a very specific narrow sectors, such as attacking some kind of the, let's say, Artyomovsk, which is Bakhmut, and being surrounded as we speak, or kick out some other people, from armed forces of Ukraine or very many foreign mercenaries. But that's about it. And as I already stated, there is nothing worse than you have the amateurs with zero military background who begin to report on the tactical minutiae and then suddenly make the global generalizations and global conclusions based on that without having even the basic foundational things, to apply to while making those conclusions. And as a result, they continue to spew BS and actually downright misinformation. And this is not only about the Western journalists, so to speak, or military analysts. Most of them are not really analysts and not really military. But look at this. Even this life, which is, surprisingly good, huge piece about the situation on the 14th already stated that, and they speak about the fact that basically a bunch of those Russian correspondents started to spew Ukrainian propaganda up to the point that what is called Davidov Brod, which is Davidov Fort, and they were reporting that, they already, Ukrainians took that, they already took the, Kupiansk, which is not true, and they continue to spew these rumors and everything so actively that I was at that time appalled by this. And here it is. And Life reports on the fact that actually and that's how I will translate it for you. Yeah, there was the report that they tried to actually go inside the zone of this the Davidov fort, and this is just one of the locations there. But as there was told to journalists by the commander of the platoon of the fire support of the 127th Regiment of DNR with the call sign Sich, he told that, yeah, they tried, but as a matter of fact, all of them now are laying in the fields and nobody even pick up their corpses. And as he stated, in this senseless attack, the 1,200 Ukrainian fighters and have been basically killed. And this is just, you know, a general situation with the scale of the losses by Ukraine. And this is what, for example, Mr. Dage or anybody from foreign policy cannot understand. That war is not about, you know, basically presenting pleasantries to your enemies. It's about killing them, annihilating them physically. And so we have the situation now, which is we begin to get the real numbers from already Kharkov, so-called successful offensive, and we already know that it's, again, as I stated, in excess of 10,000 KIAs killed alone. And basically, as they call in Russia, the armed forces of Ukraine, they are frog armed forces. The reason they call them frog armed forces because they can only jump for one thrust. Once they go to one thrust, they exhaust immediately first, second echelons of their reserves, which are required for serious offensive, and they get stuck. And that's what happened. They are stuck now in the open field and being annihilated by Russian artillery, aviation, and standoff weapons. And as I already stated, it's in excess of 10,000 killed and number of wounded we don't know. So basically, this whole wave, which took their basically empty fields, it has been annihilated. And here's what Life does very correctly. They go for a real serious Russian military expert, Alexei Leonkov, who is former cadre officer, colonel, and he has contributed to a number of the very serious military publications, be that Arsenal Отечества, that means Arsenal of the Fatherland, and other military publications where real professionals write. And here what he stated, and I am on record with the same pretty much statement, and here's Leonkov verbatim 4 days ago. And that's what he says, that armed forces of Ukraine were actually created initially for the reason to provoke Russia in conflict, and once Russia was provoked in conflict, they were trying to do the war, you know, defensive war, trying to exhaust Russian forces with the help of the Western partners, so to speak. And they really thought that, and this was all planned in Pentagon and in London, but because we evidently have the issue of the competence, military competence, and again, the United States never conducted operations like that in its life after 1950. And so that's what Leonkov says. In order for you to conduct a successful offensive operation, they never happened for them. They never managed to conduct such operation. And you cannot say as the armed forces as a whole, you cannot say that they are Ukrainian. Yes, they fight under the Ukrainian flags, but the participation of the foreign mercenaries and the fighters and of all kinds of terrorist organizations, which are basically commanded and controlled by the instructors and cadre officers from the military people from the United States and Great Britain. It's very possible that they are really good specialists in terms of punitive operations, which means operations against civilians, but they are not specialists on the offensive operations, which I can totally confirm. And again, for people who still live in this bubble and still drink the Kool-Aid, the only successful offensive operation of the United States was actually, of the combined arms warfare of any scale, was after the half year of the uninterrupted preparation in Gulf War #1 against the third-rate and by that time demoralized and bombed into utter submission of Saddam's army. But here is completely different story, and that's what many people do not understand. That Pentagon doesn't know how to conduct this operation. It never fought with the enemy who, for example, today, they yesterday and today combined another basically around 30 HIMARS missiles have been intercepted by Russian air defense. I mean, I already on record when I say that people who still think that they can send the F-16, F-15, F-35 and they will make any difference, they will not. United States never fought with the enemy who possesses the air defense and the air force which Russia has. And that brings us also that not only to this panic and absolute incompetence of not only Western we know that they are a bunch of crooks there and that those people have no morals or integrity, but also Russian 99%, and I'm on record, I write about this for years, 99% of what comes from these military channels, all this, what have you, South Front, all those Podolyakas and whatever, those people have no clue what they're talking about. And primarily they don't have even basic information to make any conclusions. They do not forward a hypothesis. For example, when I speculate, I tell people, I speculate. Or when I don't know, which is most of the time, I say, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not gonna, here's hypothesis, but don't quote me on that. Well, those people want to be quoted because it is all about the ambition and about the monetization and number of the subscribers. So, and that's what I want to address, the other thing. I'm sick and tired listening to this mobilization bullshit. The reason I'm sick and tired because this mobilization bullshit emanates primarily for people who never served a day in the uniform and they do not understand what is the mobilizational directorate in Russian Armed Forces, Ministry of Defense, what they do, what kind of the documents, most of them top secret are, and what it requires from the legislative point of view and military point of view to mobilize, be it a partial or let alone whole mobilization. Those people have no clue what they're talking about because most of them are humanities dumbed down morons who never understood what it means mobilization military, which immediately brings up the mobilization of on the civilian sector and military industrial complex, while Russia military industrial complex without being mobilized is doing just a fine job. So, but that's the whole point. How you can explain to moron that he's a moron? Because you cannot explain it to him because he's a moron. It's impossible to explain to those people, all those mamas, analysts, that basically that's why Russia doesn't declare the war on Ukraine. And this is merely special military operation. There's a huge issue of legality there. And there's huge issue of the government and state control. And, but those people don't understand. Not to mention the fact that there's no necessity to do this mobilization. Because everything what is happening is working just fine. Well, of course there are some mistakes here and there, tactical thing, so obviously they happen all the time, anywhere. There's no perfect armies, there are no perfect general staffs. But again, here's today's basically appeal. It's not just, I do not even know how to really explain it anymore to any other people, but take it from the Russian informational agency RIA News by one of the special forces, elite special forces. They explain it, they obviously do not disclose who this person is, and he says that you don't need any mobilization. We have more than enough forces and means to conduct all necessary operations and finish them, as planned. But of course, what this guy knows, what this officer of the special forces, who is on the front lines and basically wiping out all those, special forces of Ukraine and US and UK knows, really. No, I'm not kidding. Can you imagine this? You have military professionals telling you that this is white, and everybody says, no, this is black. Okay, so you know what? I surrender. Let those idiots continue to speculate, continue to spew bullshit, but be aware that indeed we have the situation with people who have no clue, and they, as is happening across the board, not only in the West, sadly, when you look at the term journalist, know then that you're speaking with the person who have no clue most of the time. I'm talking about majority, but not all of them, of course, like that. And as I already stated, there is a very narrow circle of people and real reporters, real journalists whom I, for example, trust. They are my sources. Very few of them. The same as there are very few analysts which I trust, you know. And so when people say, oh, but this general said this, meaning American, Russian generals usually don't speak that much on that issue. Sometimes might say, but usually, as I stated, the best blogger and the best analyst in the world on this issue is Lieutenant General Konashenkov, who is, of course, the press secretary and spokesperson for Russian Defense Ministry. After that, and including when you put together some other sources, what is called the open source intelligence, you begin to get the full picture of, well, near full. Of course, we will not know all details. You begin to get this picture that, this is how it goes. And so as was expected and so as was predicted, all this famous offensive in Kharkov area by armed forces of Ukraine fizzled out. They lost pretty much a division or two, size force. There are reports of the massive annihilation of the American and British mercenaries, and so we will get some pictures, but already some pictures and videos already started to stream through, and you will see yourself. But basically, you're dealing with the armed forces of Ukraine and the mercenaries who, as I already stated, they don't know what real war is. They now know, well, those who survived, those who didn't, and that's majority of them. What can I say? And as this guy from Eldonere officer stated that, you know what, those corpses are still littering the whole, you know, we just 1 square kilometer after another. With the bodies, nobody even picks them up. And we already know that the hospitals are absolutely packed in Kharkov and everywhere around there. And of course, we have this non-stop mourning periods in the western Ukraine, because that's where the majority of those cannon fodder are thrown into the battle by Pentagon and London. So that's what I wanted to tell you about. And again, I very much stress that read Larry's excellent article about politicization of the intelligence. And when we say about the Western, this time Western incompetence across the board, you have to understand that, yes, we have midterms coming. Yes, it is all connected to this midterms and basically obsession of the left-wing America with Trumpism. And they basically go at it, and it's basically already kind of schizophrenic situation happening there. But what I want to say is another interesting thing which appeared today, and this is, hey, this is Yahoo Finance, Yahoo News, and when you begin to get those things more and more into, you know, open for the discussion, and here's the guy who says, you know what, the stock market is not the economy in an important way. And he explains, including this one of the reasons. According to the fact set, S&P 500 companies generate around 40% of revenue outside of the US. That means these companies are significantly dependent on the health of the international economies in which they operate. They employ abroad, source goods abroad, and sell abroad. And you know what it means? It means only one thing. For actually American economy, when you talk about the this type of business, which are transnationals, and most of them continue to deindustrialize the United States, shipping jobs and technologies abroad, that means that America's gross domestic product, as I am on many years on record, including obviously having such support in my views as incredible, incomparable Mr. Michael Hudson, American GNP is not 23 trillion or 21 or 19. It's probably around, realistically, $8-9 trillion. And most of it is actually based on the inflated stock market and capitalization numbers. And yeah, it's difficult to explain when you have the retail chain such as Walgreens, which has bigger capitalization than, for example, the such companies as Boeing or General Electric. Because if you remove Boeing, granted that if we can imagine this absolutely ridiculous scenario, if we remove Boeing from the American soil, it means America is done as completely as a nation. If you remove Walgreens, for example, the other network and chain will appear immediately and will take its place. And nobody will probably even notice it. But guess what? I believe General Electric was removed from Dow Industrial. I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong? But I think so. It was General Electric which was removed. And Walgreens have been introduced as one of those industrial foundations of the Dow Industrial. That's your economy. Most of it is fake and capitalization, and basically that is why we have what we have today. A horrendous situation with the not only social dysfunction but economic, military dysfunction in the United States and the West as a whole, and even seemingly kind of reasonable in a nefarious kind of way idea that the United States needs to sacrifice, which it's doing beautifully, the Europe and European Union in order to live longer. It could have worked if you have the actually normal, smart, and competent people on the top. But the problem is, obviously, once Europe is crushed, which is happening as I speak to you, and it will be crushed, it will be completely deindustrialized. United States, that's what they kind of didn't calculate, the same as they didn't calculate the situation with Russian economy. It will be the thing which United States will lose also the market, because poor countries are not good markets to sell your shit to them. And Europe was good only when it was basically could afford things, when it was a voluminous, a large volume market which could pay. Well, that's coming to an end, my friends, in Europe, and because of that, United States will be next. Sadly, I'm here in United States, and I'm just scratching my head. As many American patriots, some of them are my very good friends, who say, "What the hell is going on? They're killing our own country." But what can I say? You voted for it. I didn't vote for it. Just don't blame me, So, and blame yourself. So, and that's what I wanted to tell you today a little bit. And so I probably will be having a root canal tomorrow. So I will be able to talk to you for a couple of days, I think. So, and guys, those who can obviously afford, please support me on Patreon. And again, my profound gratitude to my wonderful patrons who allow me to do what I do now. And obviously, if you like my channel, please subscribe. And have the nice rest of your weekend and listen to Pink Floyd. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.